It was a hot July afternoon in Clearwater, Florida. The sun baked the parking lot of a small convenience store, where families came and went, loading groceries into their cars, kids tugging on sleeves for candy and soda. For most, it was just another day. But for one family and one man, it would be the day their lives collided, and the day America would once again wrestle with a question it still hasn't answered. When does self-defense become murder? Michael Drejka was 47 years old, a man known in his neighborhood for being outspoken, maybe even confrontational. He was the type who noticed things others ignored, especially when it came to parking spots. Rules mattered to him, and he made sure others knew it. The convenience store had a handicap parking space near the front. That day, Brittany Jacobs pulled in with her boyfriend, Markeis McGlockton, and their children. She wasn't handicapped, but with little kids in the car, it felt easier to park close. McGlockton went inside to grab snacks, while Jacobs stayed in the car with the children. That's when Drejka noticed the car parked in the handicap spot. For him, this wasn't just a small violation. This was something worth confronting. He walked up to the driver's side window and began lecturing Jacobs. His voice wasn't calm. Jacobs would later say he sounded aggressive, angry, intimidating. The children in the back began to cry. Then the store door opened. McGlockton stepped out, saw his girlfriend being yelled at by a stranger, and didn't stop to ask questions. He walked straight over, and in a split second, shoved Drejka hard in the chest. The impact sent Drejka sprawling onto the asphalt. For most people, that might have been the end of it. A confrontation in a parking lot. Tempers flaring, then cooling off. People walk away. But that's not what happened. As Drejka hit the ground, something changed. He reached into his waistband and pulled out a handgun. Jacob screamed. McGlockton froze. He had no weapon, no gun, no knife, nothing in his hands. He even took a step back. But Drejka, lying on the ground, aimed and pulled the trigger. One shot rang out. The bullet struck McGlockton in the chest. He stumbled back into the store, clutching his wound. His children saw him collapse. Within moments, he was gone. When police arrived, the scene looked clear-cut. A man dead in front of his family. Normally, a shooter would be arrested on the spot. But Florida has one of the most controversial laws in America, stand your ground. Under this law, a person has no duty to retreat if they believe their life is in danger. They can use deadly force to stop what they perceive as a threat. Drejka told police he feared for his life after the shove. He said McGlockton was younger, stronger, and he thought another attack was coming. After hours of questioning, police released him. No arrest, no charges. At least, not yet. When the news broke, outrage swept through the community. McGlockton was 28, a black father of 3. He had died unarmed over a parking spot. Protesters marched outside the convenience store. Civil rights leaders called it another case of racial injustice. Was stand your ground being used as a shield by men who wanted to kill without consequence? The sheriff defended his decision, saying the law tied his hands. But as reporters dug deeper, a disturbing pattern emerged. This wasn't the first time Drejka had confronted strangers in that very parking lot. Just months earlier, another man claimed Drejka threatened to shoot him during a similar argument. To many, it began to look less like a man acting out of fear and more like someone waiting for conflict. Under mounting public pressure, prosecutors eventually filed charges. Drejka was arrested and charged with manslaughter. In court, the defense argued he acted legally. He had been blindsided by a violent shove and had every reason to fear for his life. Stand your ground, they said, gave him the right to fire. The prosecution painted a different picture. They showed the surveillance video, the shove, the fall, the gun being drawn, and the most crucial detail, McGlockton stepping back right before the shot was fired. If he was retreating, how could Drejka have still feared for his life? Witnesses testified that Drejka had a short temper, that he was obsessed with minor rules. Jacobs took the stand and gave emotional testimony about watching her children's father die in front of them. The defense pushed back, saying Drejka had only seconds to make a life-or-death decision. But the prosecution hammered one point: fear must be reasonable. And when a man is stepping back, the threat is no longer immediate. The jury deliberated. The community held its breath. Finally, the verdict came guilty of manslaughter. Drejka was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Yet, even with the verdict, the questions remain. Supporters of Stand Your Ground argue that without it, ordinary citizens would be punished for defending themselves. They say Drejka had the right to respond after being violently attacked. Opponents argue the law encourages people to escalate situations instead of walking away, turning small confrontations into deadly encounters. And beneath it all lies the racial question. Would Stand Your Ground have protected McGlockton if the roles were reversed? Would a young black man have been allowed to shoot an older white man and walk free? In the end, the jury said guilty, but the law remains. Stand Your Ground still exists in Florida and many other states. The next case could play out very differently. So here's the question for you. Was Michael Drejka a man genuinely afraid for his life, acting in the only way he thought possible? Or was he a man looking for trouble, who used the law as cover to take another man's life over a parking spot? Was he guilty or not?